Good morning, everyone. I just want to do a test, if I may, uh, the visual test as well as audio test. Am I loud and clear?
You are live, Mr. Reddy. We can see your visuals. You are coming out loud and clear. Thank you.
Can you also see my pocket handkerchief? Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Now we're good to go.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, honourable members. Welcome to those of you who have joined this virtual mini-plenary session. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Honourable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini-plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitutes a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of the debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and where connectivity permits, connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up their hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to the members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Lastly, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini-plenary session, and therefore any decisions that will be taken in a full plenary session of the Assembly. Honourable members, the first order of the day is the consideration of a report of the Portfolio Committee on Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment on an oversight visit to KwaZulu-Natal from 25 to 28 February this year. To introduce the report, I recognise the Chair, the Honourable Ganchu.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Greetings to yourself, greetings to Honorable Minister and Deputy Ministers, and greetings to Honorable Members and fellow South Africans. I rise on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Forestry, Fisheries and Environment to table the Oversight report for the House to adopt. In the KwaZulu-Natal province, the Oversight visit had three objectives focused on. One, assessing the advancements made in the 4 billion commercialization strategy of the Isimangaliso Wetland Park Authority, which is intended to enhance the park's financial independence and modernize the park's infrastructure. Number two, evaluating the progress of environmental rehabilitation efforts at the UPL ecological disaster site, improvements in environmental governance, and engaging with the affected stakeholders. Lastly, getting an update on advancements in improving air quality, enforcing air quality standards, industry strategies for lowering air pollutant emissions, and first-hand accounts from the stakeholders. Honorable Chairperson, Isimangaliso is making good strides in its commercialization strategy, which has identified 10 jewels which will be operated through concessions in a public-private partnership to attract investments, enhance tourism, and drive inclusive socio-economic development. The Portfolio Committee saw the completed and ongoing infrastructure projects as well as unfolding plans to attract investments into the park. More work needs to be done to improve the visitor experience in the park through the expansion of the maintenance and the revitalization of the park facilities. We commend Isimangaliso for executing the infrastructure program while complying with legislation, which has enabled them to maintain several clean audits. Honorable members and Honorable Chairperson, the committee appreciates the ecological recovery from the devastating UPL chemical spills and fire that occurred because of the July 21st unrest in KwaZulu-Natal. However, the committee is concerned by the discharge and seepage of contaminated water from the UPL facility, the delays in prosecution, municipal sewage contamination of the ecosystem, contradictory reports between communities and government, and potential long-term health impacts on Konobia and Blackburn communities. The committee will monitor the developments to ensure the advancement of environmental rights, improvements in wastewater management, and environmental health. We are concerned about the South Durban Basin Spatial Plan that keeps industrial activities and residential areas together. This reality is at core of the ongoing pollution exposure of communities, generation after generation. While we note some level of compliance with air quality standards, it was glaringly apparent that the government and the industry were not paying attention to reduce particles that are the size of dust, which have remained high in the area and cause respiratory problems. It was concerning that the committee that there was a lack of healthcare services and medication in South Durban communities, including the suspension of the plans to operate a 24-hour health facility. As I conclude, Honorable Chairperson and members, the committee remains optimistic that Isimangaliso will turn the corner and become a tourist destination with attractive facilities and services, thereby achieving its financial self-sufficiency. It is concerning that officials' reports from companies and eThekwini Metro indicates compliance with established emission standards, yet community members in the South Durban Basin continue to suffer from pollution-related illnesses and insufficient health services. The Portfolio Committee will follow up on these pollution matters to ensure improvements in law enforcement and pay closer attention to the pollutants and drive respiratory diseases. Once again, I submitted the report for the House to adopt. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Peach.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Chair, the DA supports this report. As a Portfolio Committee, it is extremely important that we fulfill our constitutional mandate of oversight. As specifically parliamentarians, oversight is critical. In addition to the development of legislation required to better South African lives, Parliament needs more oversight, despite fiscal constraints, to ensure good governance and performance tracking. The deplorable details laid out in this report will most undoubtedly be repeated by the other members. But I would like to just speak on a highly personal level. Our first engagement with communities affected by UPL chemical spill was in the north of Durban. We all remember the July 2021 riots in KwaZulu-Natal. Shamefully, some members of this very House remain unanswerable to the courts in regarding to their own role in inciting this senseless violence, trading political expedience and protecting corruption and criminals over human life and dignity. While the city was ransacked and violence spread to the UPL facility, a chemical manufacturing plant, little value was found to loot, and these thieves then turned to arson. Explosions released clouds of noxious gas and caused spillage of pollution into nearby river and ocean systems. To this day, despite millions and millions spent sterilizing the site, pollution continues to drain into the rivers, affecting nearby communities, as well as the ecosystem, and ultimately flowing into the oceans. We met as a portfolio committee with representatives from UPL, the eThekwini municipality, and members of the affected community. From the start, it was clear that there had been a breakdown in communications, which led to contempt, frustration, and sometimes fury as it permeated through discussions. There were conflicting stories about the disaster, and it was difficult to understand fact from fiction. Since our visit, the NPA announced that they will be pressing charges against UPL for their illegal activities. They in turn indicated that they will fight these charges. We will watch this case with interest as we attempt to establish what really happened in the aspects of one of South Africa's darkest post-apartheid days. We then had a community meeting with the Merebank community in the Durban South Basin. Here we heard the heartbreaking tales of how air pollution from fuel refineries have caused widespread cancer, respiratory illness, and general ill health. This is the sad consequences of both the apartheid spatial planning as well as the eThekwini Metro's spatial planning and their lack of regard for disadvantaged communities, which now live on the doorstep. This is within the buffer zone of heavy industry, a situation that should have never been allowed to happen by any caring municipality. With each person that stood up, my heart broke even a little more. We have, since our visit, learned that SAPREF, the South African Petroleum Refinery, has also now been sold for R1 to a new owner. The historical responsibilities of the community unrealized. There are intentions to restart these operations, and these communities are desperate for jobs. But this is not just for those communities who are still suffering from decades of unmitigated and untreated personal consequences of industrial profiteers, but also requires the general South African economy that must be kept up to date. In Isimangaliso, and this is a good story, we visited some of the infrastructure upgrades and new commercial developments within this wetland reserve, where a delicate balance needs to be struck as local communities suffer from a lack of access to employment and economic opportunities. The commercialization strategy is set to leverage natural assets and has been designed to maximize benefits to local people, which we support. This oversight has shown that the environment touches every aspect of people's lives and how failures, especially at local government level, hurts our people. eThekwini's leadership failure to protect property and people during riots, and its not clear emergency response for such
Thank you, Honourable Peach.
Thank you very much,
Now expired.
House Chair. We support this report.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Temba.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. The MK Party rise on this matter not to reflect on the report, but to reflect on the environment, on the lives, environment, and the communities that continue to bear the scars of the Konubia toxic chemical disaster. We stand here categorically reject this report. Why? Because the report before us is a case study in the government failing its own people, dressing up mediocrity as oversight. The prioritizing cooperative cleaning up narrative over the leave pain of communities. Constitutional failure. The oversight was supposedly guided by the Section 24 of the Constitution, the right of every person to an environment that is not harmful to their health and well-being. Yet this report documented in black and white that there was no specific environmental impact assessment for this facility. There was no major hazard installation permit. There was no scheduled trade permit. Just imagine our people in the rural area. In other words, the very preconditions for operation of hazardous chemical warehouse were absent. But instead of calling this what it is, an illegal operation enabled by the negligence of state authorities, this report reads like an apology tour for the UPL and blaming games against unrest and arson. And the MK party says this cannot constitutionalize negligence. The report records that affected communities complaints about: one, lack of communication from the government and UPL, exclusive from the Joint Operation Committee, absence of health assessment, no medical team on the ground, children play under toxic smoke, sugarcane harvested in the contaminated field, calls ignored by population hotlines, the black band community without a clinic to this day. Honorable member, this is not oversight. It is an abandonment. The committee finds ever concerned that the community were not consulted, yet the recommendations do nothing but address the injustice, not binding obligations for the compensation, no demand for an independent health inquiries, no guarantees for long-term medical monitoring, and vague promises that reports will be vanished in due course. The MK party, this is the equivalent of telling people cooking from the toxic flames and waiting until they submit paperwork. The report also reveals the uncomfortable truth: foreign multinations such as UPL are allowed to operate in our land with impunity, with little regards of our
Thank you,
laws,
Honourable Member.
our health, and
Your
our
time has now
sovereignty.
expired.
We are rejecting this budget, this report.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Managa.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, as one of the delegates who conducted the oversight visits to KwaZulu-Natal, I wish to highlight key observations and concerns raised by communities. The upgrading of infrastructure at Isimangaliso Wetland Park, including roads, accommodation, and water system, is commendable. However, the EFF cautions the management against over-commercialization of the park at the expense of its ecological integrity. Development must always prioritize biodiversity protection while ensuring that communities benefit in a sustainable way, not merely through temporary jobs or elite tourism projects. We welcome the authority's commitment to good governance, clean audits, and socio-economic contributions through job creation and community-owned concessions. The community of Blackburn and surrounding areas continues to live with the trauma and health risks of one of South Africa's most severe environmental disasters, the UPL agrochemical spill in Cornubia. House Chair, the Economic Freedom Fighters is deeply concerned about the slow pace of remediation and accountability. Stakeholders that made it clear that communication was poor, lacked transparency, and livelihoods, particularly in the fishing communities, were destroyed without fair compensation to date. The use of banned chemicals and the neglect of community science cannot be tolerated. We demand the release of the Director of Public Prosecution's report, clear timelines for full rehabilitation and accountability from both government and the UPL. In the South Durban Basin, the health crisis caused by decades of industrial pollution remain unacceptable. Communities continue to suffer from cancer and other chronic respiratory diseases while industry hide behind legal tactics and weak compliance monitoring. Although the committee noted Engen's transition from refinery to tank terminal and SAPI and Mondi's commitments to sustainability, the lived reality of communities is one of neglect, weak enforcement, and disregard, House Chair, for human lives. Monitoring stations are failing, fines do not benefit affected communities, and evacuation plans are absent. Clear evidence of a system that prioritizes profit over people is the one that is evident. House Chair, the ongoing sewage contamination crisis further undermines all environmental recovery efforts, including those linked to the UPL disaster. The EFF therefore calls on eThekwini Metro to present a comprehensive wastewater management plan. It is unacceptable that plans for a 24-hour health facility were suspended while communities continue to suffer. The committee must also work with Portfolio Committee on Health to address the healthcare crisis in South Durban. Oversight, Honorable Chair, is not a box-ticking exercise. It is a tool
Thank
to
you,
ensure
Honourable
accountability.
Member.
As the
Yeah.
EFF, we reject the report.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Peters.
Honorable House Chair, the Patriotic
Chair.
Alliance has taken.
My apologies, you have skipped the IFP, House Chairperson, but I can come after the Honourable Peters.
Yes, you were not on my list, so that would mean that your whippery indicated to the table that you won't take part, Honourable van der Merwe, but I will give you an opportunity after the PA. Honourable Peters, please proceed.
Thank you. The Patriotic Alliance note and support the comprehensive report of the Oversight visit to KwaZulu-Natal. We acknowledge the work done by the committee, the findings revealed in a crisis of accountability, enforcement and compassion that is failing the people of South Africa, particularly the poor and the working class communities who bear the brunt of environmental degradation. The visit to the UPL disaster site in the South Durban Basin was not merely an oversight exercise, it was a glimpse into systemic failure. What we saw was a blueprint for how not to manage our environment or protect our citizens. The people of Blackburn, Wentworth, and Merebank are not living, they are surviving in a toxic environment, while government departments and corporations engage in never-ending cycle of meetings, reports, and empty promises. Therefore, the Patriotic Alliance declare the following. We need to prioritize people over paperwork. The DFFE and its counterparts must shift from being administrators of disaster to architects of prevention and rapid response. Endless studies like the Human Health Risk Assessment cannot be an excuse for inaction. We demand the immediate establishment of a dedicated, fully funded healthcare fund administered by the Department of Health in conjunction with the DFFE to provide free specialized medical treatment for residents suffering from pollution-related illnesses in these areas. The report indicates that eThekwini municipality was aware of UPL's contravention, yet took no decisive action. This is a dereliction of duty. We call for immediate criminal prosecution against any company, including UPL and Engine, and many municipal officers found to be in repeat, knowing violation of environmental laws and their license conditions. The fact that eThekwini's call centers go unanswered even during emergencies is a scandal. Environmental justice cannot be achieved without functional local government. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, House Chair, the people are drowning in pollution and choking on broken promises. Oversight visits are meaningless if they only produce reports that gather dust on shelves. We need less stock.
Thank you,
Caution.
Honourable
We need
Peters.
less compliance reporting. We support
Thank you. Your time has
the report.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Van der Merwe, while I recognise you, let me apologise. You were in fact on the list and I missed it.
Oh, I was just about to apologize to you, Chairperson. But no, allow me to keep my camera off, Chair, because I've got a struggling internet connection this morning. Honourable House Chairperson, the IFP commends the committee for prioritising direct engagement with affected communities and industries. The issues examined, ranging from the rehabilitation efforts after the UPL Kunubia chemical disaster, the air quality crisis in the South Durban Basin, to the planned upgrades at the isiMangaliso Wetland Park, go to the heart of our constitutional obligation to protect the environment for present and future generations. We note with concern that 3 years after the UPL disaster, affected communities continue to live with uncertainty, inadequate health support, and delayed accountability. We believe that government must urgently prioritise and finalise the outstanding reports, ensure prosecution, and expedite fair compensation for households whose health and livelihoods have been affected. We just simply cannot continue to fail these communities. On the South Durban Basin, we cannot ignore the persistent reports of respiratory illnesses, cancer, and premature deaths linked to decades of unchecked industrial pollution. While industry presented compliance data, the lived experiences of communities reflect a starkly different reality. We must ensure that these polluting industries are held accountable without fear or favour. With regard to the isiMangaliso Wetland Park, we welcome the 500 million rand investment in infrastructure and the progress towards a 4 billion rand turnaround plan. However, we stress, as we always do, that local communities must remain the principal beneficiaries of such opportunities. The report further highlights the intersection of environmental justice, public health, and economic transformation. We reaffirm our position that environmental degradation is not only an ecological issue, but a profound socio-economic injustice felt hardest by the poor. We call on the department, municipalities, and industries to act with urgency, transparency, and accountability in implementing the committee's recommendations.
Thank
the
you,
IFP
Honourable Van der Merwe.
and the IFP supports this report. Thank you so much, House Chair.
Thank you. Is there a speaker representing the Freedom Front Plus?
Geen stemverklaring nie, voorsitter. Dankie.
Thank you. Then I recognise the Honourable Beasley.
Honourable Speaker, it is a great pity that during recent oversight visits to eThekwini, the committee failed to examine the escalating sewage crisis. This disaster is devastating our environment and crippling tourism on which so many families depend. As a surfer and lover of the ocean, I've witnessed firsthand the heartbreaking destruction of our rivers and coastal waters. Yet, despite the severity of this catastrophe, not a single department or minister has taken responsibility. We have a government overflowing with ministries, but not one minister willing to step forward and lead a solution. Equally disturbing is a lack of accountability regarding the United Phosphorus Limited disaster during the July 2021 unrest, arguably one of the worst man-made environmental disasters in South Africa's history. A cocktail of highly toxic chemicals were released into the air, water, soil, and coastal waters of Durban. These chemicals should never have been stored in such a warehouse. Yet, Years later, there's still no clarity on the status of criminal charges or accountability for this environmental crime. Action SA believes that as custodians of the environment, we cannot allow impunity to prevail. Those who break environmental and safety laws must face the full might of justice. Anything less would be a betrayal of our duty to both the people and our collective of the natural heritage. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker on behalf of the ACDP? The UDM? Rais Mzansi? BOSA? The ATM? Al-Jamaa? The NCC? The PIC? The UIT? Good. If not, then I recognize the Honorable Makatsa.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers present in the platform, all honorable members and South Africans. In the spirit of Heritage Month, allow me to greet everyone in their official language as recognized by our country. Having considered the report of the Portfolio Committee on Forestry, Fisheries and Environment on its oversight visit to KZN on the 25th to 28th of February 2025, the ANC wishes to declare its support for the critical observations and recommendations as reflected. The oversight visit was empowered by Section 55, 2B of the Constitution, which mandates the National Assembly to provide mechanisms for oversight of the National Executive Authority, the implementation of legislation and any organ of the state. Moreover, this oversight was a direct response to Section 24 of our Constitution, which enshrines the right of everyone to an environment not harmful to their health or well-being, and the right to have it protected for present and future generations through reasonable legislative and other measures. Honorable Chairperson, it is regrettable that during the 2021 July unrest, the UPL's warehouse, a company that produces a variety of pesticides and agrochemical products, primarily for the agricultural sector, was destroyed by fire, causing chemicals to spill into the surrounding environment, including the water, soil, and nearby Durban coastal waters. The fire released highly toxic chemicals, fumes, and dust that persisted for over 10 days, contaminating a local river stream and poisoning thousands of fish, leading to the closure of several beaches. Due to this, there were reports of respiratory health complications with the possibility of lifelong impacts, as residents inhaled heavily contaminated air for several days, and mild pollution levels persisted for more than a month. Feedback from stakeholders' interactions with the South African Durban Environmental Alliance also indicated that communities reported a significant increase in deaths attributed to long-term pollutant exposure, climate change-related extreme weather events, and industrial emissions, with the cancer prevalence, respiratory illnesses, and hearing loss specifically linked to engines operations. It is for this reason, honorable members, that continuous education and consciousness of our constituencies and citizens as a whole is crucial. It is incumbent on all of us to protect our environment and surroundings and safeguard our democratic gains. We implore the Portfolio Committee to be steadfast in its resolve to hold municipalities accountable for their environmental plans. The eThekwini Metro must present a comprehensive wastewater management plan for all catchment areas to mitigate the persistent risk of sewage contamination, which currently threatens the effectiveness of ongoing UPL environmental recovery efforts. We must follow through with the resolution to facilitate a meeting with the Portfolio Committee on Health to discuss the lack of healthcare services and medication in South Durban communities, including the suspension of plans to operate a 24-hour health facility. Equally, there must be a proper plan to hold the private sector accountable to the commitments they made. We call on our government and state-owned entities to rope in all stakeholders, particularly civil society leaders and affected communities, in the work that they do as we try to collectively address the challenges confronting our society. It can be corrected that in every oversight, communities register concerns of being left behind in discussions and decisions made which affect them, as it is the case with Engine. The ANC supports the committee recommendations to harness the potential of the eThekwini Equality Forum for stakeholder engagement, collaboration, and the sharing of information between various entities, including government, industries, NGOs, and civil society. We also welcome the support. We also welcome and support the work done through the Human Health Risk Assessment Study conducted by the University of Cape Town in partnership with the University of KwaZulu-Natal. It intends to serve as a basis for further research that will inform potential compensation, including the extent of that compensation. In conclusion, Chairperson, we must welcome the over 500 million that has been invested towards capital projects at the Isimangaliso Wetland Park Authority, focusing at refurbishing their headquarters, the upgrade of the park's road network and fencing, enhancing visitors' access, and the construction and renovation of lodging units, resorts, campsites, staff housing, and water infrastructure. We trust that it will contribute towards the 4 billion commercialization strategy aimed at driving the park's financial independence. It must also be noted that this report was unanimously adopted by all portfolio committee members, and it's just mischievous for members to come and disagree with its conduct, with this content of the report, and further reject what they agreed upon. We understand the political mandate by members. Also, they must equally practice what they preach and ensure that they implement the resolutions of the portfolio committee. Latter. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honourable members, that concludes declarations on the first report. We shall now proceed to the second order, which is the consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation on an oversight visit to the Kingdom of Lesotho. To introduce the report, I recognize the Honourable Basson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I present the report of the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation on our oversight visit to the Kingdom of Lesotho from 23 to 28 February, focusing on the Lesotho Highlands Water Project Phase 2. The Lesotho Highland Water Project is one of the most significant bilateral infrastructure projects on our continent. It provides hydroelectricity to Lesotho and transfer water to South Africa, with the Katsi Dam alone meeting around 60% of Gauteng's demand. This makes it central to the economy of our country, especially in Gauteng, where water supports households, industries, mining and agriculture. Phase 1 was completed successfully, but Phase 2 is falling behind. The overall progress stands at 48% against a planned 56%. The Polihali Dam and the 38-kilometer transfer tunnel are delayed. The completion date has now shifted to 2029, 2 years later than scheduled. Chairperson, the importance of the Phase 2 cannot be overstated. Once completed, it will increase the transfer of water from Lesotho to South Africa to nearly 2,000 million cubic meters annually. This means that Gauteng will gain an additional 490 million cubic meters of water each year. This is the equivalent of supplying hundreds of thousands of households and safeguarding water-intensive industries from shortages. This project is valued at 53.3 billion rand, of which 16.7 billion has already been spent, while 63% of advanced infrastructure spending has benefited Lesotho and 36% South Africa. We remain concerned that more than 526 million earmarked for skills development has not benefited either country. This represents a missed opportunity for capacity building. The delays in the project are linked to contractor underperformance, administrative hurdles, and the impact of COVID-19. The resettlement of communities, labor disputes, and environmental risks added further strain. Climate change has already reduced inflows into the Katsi Dam, making this expansion urgent if we are to maintain water security. In response, the committee resolved that the Department of Water and Sanitation must brief Parliament in detail on the treaty provisions, royalties, and financing of Phase 2, the role of the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, and in particular, South Africa's delegates must be clarified. The treaty should be reviewed to allow the Auditor General of South Africa to play a role in financial oversight in Lesotho. Reports on recovery of lost time, critical skills, and the reasons for omitted financial slide must be tabled. A bilateral with Lesotho Parliament must be convened to strengthen oversight and collaboration. In conclusion, this project is vital for the water security of Gauteng and the economy development in both countries. The benefits will only materialize if details are addressed, delays are addressed, financial accountability is strengthened, and cooperation remains transparent. Chairperson, the committee presents this report to Parliament for consideration. I thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is the Honourable Ramahila.
Thank you, Chair. We of the ANC wish to declare our full support for the oversight report adopted by the Portfolio Committee on March, which depicts our search for the key milestones and experiences which have characterized the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, which water transfer project joins the Republic of South Africa and the Kingdom of Lesotho at a hip in support of livelihoods, economies of the two sovereigns. Honorable Chairperson, we pride ourselves on being the torchbearers in defense of Section 27, subsection 1B of our Constitution. Herein lies the tapestry of social justice, shared prosperity, and human solidarity that the ANC relentlessly pursues. As part of a prong of human solidarity, Lesotho benefits immensely from proceeds of this project. South Africa, too, will benefit from improved water security, which fortifies the integrated Vaal River system that supports over 19 million people, along with businesses, households, and other ranks of social and economic life. Honorable Chair, while we unequivocally support this water project, the ANC study group within the Portfolio Committee keeps a beady eye on the milestones, twists and turns, and the ebbs and flows of this project on the two peoples of South Africa and Lesotho. Equally, we have a prime responsibility to eradicate governance failures and ensure accountability, consequence management to guarantee efficiency and effectiveness. As we mean that through the highlands of Lesotho, we saw high quality roads, bridges, the tunnel boring machines that tunnels through mountains to ensure the flow of water from Lesotho to South Africa at a cost of 53 billion. Honorable Chairperson, the Polihali Dam project that is part of Phase 2 of the extra 490 billion liters of water that will flow into Gauteng, South Africa, is due for completion in 2029. The ANC study group in the Portfolio Committee of Water and Sanitation recommends a collaborative effort between the auditing authorities in Lesotho and South Africa on this project to ensure real outcomes and impact. To this end, we welcome the new entity, the National Water Resources Agency. We commend the Lesotho Highlands Water Authority for overcoming malfeasance, corruption, and non-compliance with the prescribed terms and conditions prescribed for this project. Nothing short of project success will bring joy to the people of South Africa and Lesotho. And most definitely this project will ensure water security for Gauteng and ensure that it will meet the water demands for Gauteng more than is expected. The ANC supports this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Moore.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honourable Chair, honourable members, I'd like to start by thanking the committee chairperson for driving our oversight visit to the Kingdom of Lesotho. It is precisely the kind of hands-on scrutiny Parliament must entrench if we are to improve service delivery and deliver strategic projects predictably and affordably. The Lesotho Highlands Water Project Phase 2 is central to South Africa's water security, especially for Gauteng and the Vaal River system. The cooperation between our two countries is strong, and we acknowledge the professional teams on both sides. But our visit also crystallized two concerns we cannot ignore. Costs have grown materially since feasibility, and timelines have slipped. On costs, before our visit, Phase 2 was communicated at costing just over 42.1 billion rand. The briefings on site, however, put the current long-term cost plan at about 53.3 billion rand, with only 16.7 billion spent by November 2024. That is a year-on-year increase of more than 11 billion rand, colleagues. South Africans deserve clear, consistent explanations for this escalation and firm control from here to completion. On the schedule, the master program has shifted out again. Remember, originally this project was meant to be finished by 2019, 2018. The previous targets now were commissioning targets once set for 2027 have moved to 2029. At component level, the Podihari Dam contract that commenced in November 2022 had an initial completion date of December 2026 and is now scheduled for 6 September 2029, 3 years later. Overall, Phase 2 progress reported to us in February 2025 was 48% against a planned 56%, with the transfer tunnel and the Senku Bridge both behind plan. Each year of delay narrows the margin of safety for Gauteng and raises the risk of instability in future drought or peak demand periods. And I'm going to go off script and talk about that later, Chair. The visit also highlighted execution and governance pressures that, if not managed tightly, feed both cost drift and slippage. We hear frank accounts of underperformance by a major contractor, including inexperienced staff, weak planning, and labor and subcontractor management issues. Contractual penalties are being applied, but it's capped at 10% with only 1% levied so far. And the reality is that penalties are not a substitute for performance. We also note that some financial slides in the LHDA briefings were redacted before being shared, and that the South African chief delegate disputed aspects of our departmental presentation on sensitive matters still before the binational commission. The level of opacity complicates our work and undermines public confidence. Equally, the Auditor General of South Africa has no direct jurisdiction over transfers to the LHDA, creating a grey area in audit assurance for Phase 2. For a project of this scale and public importance, those audit and disclosure caps must be closed through the treaty mechanisms and cooperative audits so that Parliament and the public can see one version of the truth. None of this diminishes the project's strategic value, nor does it discount the many competent professionals working under difficult conditions. But goodwill does not fill reservoirs, colleagues. Execution does. The facts from our visit are unambiguous. The budget has ballooned to over 53 billion rand, and completion has been pushed back to the end of 2029. Our message must be equally unambiguous. we must demand predictable delivery, transparent numbers, and direct accountability, with the stakes of this project being so high. Committee Chair, I'd like to thank you for leading this visit and insisting on direct answers to our direct questions. It is a model of the oversight cadence we need to maintain. We need to turn what we learned on the ground about schedule realism, contractor performance, and audit assurance and open reporting into certainty for South Africa's water future. Because, colleagues, when we went on this tour, we were worried about the future. Currently, Gauteng is experiencing that water crisis due to the lack of this project. So please, can we fight very hard to get this back on track so in the future, Gauteng doesn't drift further? I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Nkumalo.
Thank you, House Chair. Today, I rise not only in defense of public money, but in defense of dignity of every South African who has gone days, weeks, even months without a drop of water in their taps. We are told that the Lesotho Highlands Water Project Phase 2 is a solution. But what they don't tell us is that this project, originally budgeted at 8 billion, has ballooned to over 53 billion. That is a 560 cost explosion. And not a single person has been arrested, no forensic report made public, and no minister has been held accountable. I ask this House, who is getting rich while our people remain thirsty? Worse still, South Africa continued to pay inflated royalties to Lesotho for over a decade, despite knowing that the net benefit rate, the legal formula that determines what we owe, was outdated and in violation of the treaty. The result, billions lost to a technicality that government failed to correct. That's not just incompetence, that is sabotage of our national interest. And so I ask, was this a deliberate act to enrich elites while violating international agreements? Chairperson, this is not a water project anymore. It is a money laundering pipeline dressed as infrastructure. The people of South Africa demand answers, demand accountability, and demand that the era of secrecy ends here. Ngifuna ukusho lokhu sihlalo ukuthi laphana zimbiwe ubhehle. Wonke umuntu uyaxetshulwa nje emkhomeni. Lento ikwedelela abantu base South Africa futhi hayi kubedelela nje kodwa kubabeka ngisho incili ekhanda. As the MK party, we reject this report. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Kahula. Honorable Kahula, are you on the platform? Is there perhaps another speaker on behalf of the EFF? Okay, for now we will move on. If you alert me later on, we can return to the EFF. I now recognize the Honorable Van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. Water is life, yet South Africa is in the grips of an escalating national water crisis. From the Free State to KwaZulu-Natal, and from Mpumalanga to Sandton, Soweto to Hyde Park, Diepsloot to Waterfall, millions across the country wake to the same grim reality: dry taps, broken infrastructure, and empty promises. The IFP stands with the community of Coronationville and Westbury and others as they fight back against dry taps and affirming their constitutional right to water. With regards to solutions to this crisis, the IFP notes the importance of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project as an intervention to our country's water woes. As the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee pointed out, while Phase 1 of the project was successfully completed, the slow progress of Phase 2 is concerning. The project is behind schedule and is now expected to be completed in 2029. And we also note the increase in costs, which is unacceptable. Delays were caused by a range of issues, including poor contractor performance, funding challenges, and slow decision-making between the two governments. The committee noted financial concerns, including confusion around the project's budget. The IFP supports calls for clear and timely reporting from the Department of Water and Sanitation, the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, and the LHDA. We also support efforts to strengthen cooperation between the South Africa and Lesotho parliaments to improve oversight. The limited role of the AG in auditing parts of the project is concerning and should be reviewed in future treaty updates. Given the importance of this project to South Africa's water security and our economy, we urge the Minister to ensure that the committee receives all outstanding reports within the recommended timeframes and that measures are put in place to recover lost time, prevent further delay, and rein in the ballooning costs. Water is life, and so the IFP supports this report. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker representing the PA? Is there a speaker for the Freedom Front Plus in this debate?
No declaration, Chairperson.
Thank you. Then I recognize the Honourable Kobe.
Thank you, House Chair. The Lesotho Highlands Water Project is a matter of national importance, securing water for millions of South Africans and providing economic opportunity for our neighbours in Lesotho. Phase 1 was delivered successfully and remains a proud example of cross-border bilateral cooperation. But Phase 2 risks being remembered not for delivery, but for delays, red tape, and mismanagement. Our committee's report reveals serious concerns. Progress lags far behind targets, contractors are underperforming, and penalties for delays have laughably been minimal, all while the projected costs have escalated from 8 billion to a staggering 53 billion. Communities displaced by the project, hundreds of households and entire villages are still waiting for fair and timely compensation. Skills transferred to South Africans and Basotho has been weak, while key financial information was deliberately withheld from Parliament. This, House Chair, is unacceptable. As Action SA, we will not sit silently while water security is undermined by security and incompetence. We support the adoption of this report, but let me be clear, our support is entirely conditional. The transparency must be enforced, communities must be compensated without delay, and contractors must face real consequences for poor and non-performance. Finally, to strengthen oversight, both governments must review their treaty to allow it to give our Auditor General regular access to reports and financial records. This is the only way we can enforce accountability. Water is life, and it cannot be delayed, negotiated away, or buried in redacted reports. This project must deliver, and Action SA will hold both our government and its partners to account until it does. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for the ACDP? UDM? Rise Mzansi? Bosa, the ATM, Al-Jamaa, the NCC, the PAC, the UAT. Good. Before we then move to the last speaker, let me again check whether Mama Kahula is maybe joined now or whether somebody else for the EFF wants to declare. If not, then we move on to the Honourable Ditebe.
House Chairperson, honourable members, good morning. It is a singular honor and great privilege indeed to participate in this debate of the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation, focusing on our report of oversight to Lesotho earlier this year in February. We gained valuable insights into the cooperation between our country and Lesotho on this project, which goes back 39 years, Yes, indeed, this project has been delayed by several years, and yet it is so firmly back on track after repeated efforts by the executive with the support of the portfolio committee to draw to the attention of the executive shortcomings, limitations, and other weaknesses to ensure that an extra 490 billion liters of water, raw water, is delivered to South Africa from Lesotho, adding to this current 780 billion liters of raw water from Lesotho to South Africa annually. It is indeed a monumental pride of cooperation between the two peoples. We take immense pride in the 53 billion investment in this second phase of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, which, as other speakers have said, is nonetheless affected by a number of challenges. But we are also very happy that this project has enabled Lesotho to accumulate quite valuable infrastructure in the form of bridges, roads, and indeed the most difficult part of this project has been the drilling through the mountain to optimize water collection for transfer to South Africa. As the ANC, we have been very robust in directing the executive to keep this project on track, within budget, and on time. As other speakers have said, this project is due for completion in 2029. Chairperson, perhaps before I conclude on this, it is important to draw our attention to the comments made by the former Director General of the Department, Mike Miller, who compares this project after a report. Compares this project to the Snowy Mountain 2.0 of Australia, which had the tunnel boring machine stuck in there for 19 months and was therefore unable to do any work. And he concludes, he says in the beginning that projects of this nature are complex and it is easier to write horror stories about them than to explain the details. So, and he says, so well done to Ground Up, an online publication, for making the effort to report quite factually on this particular project. We are very happy, Chairperson, that AGSA...
Your time has unfortunately expired. Okay. Thank you, honourable members. That concludes declarations on the second report. We will now proceed to the last order of the day, which is the consideration of a report of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies on the 2024-2025 first and second quarter performance and expenditure reports of the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. To introduce the report, I recognize the Honourable Thangoni.
Thank you. Thank you very much, House Chair, honourable members. On the 25th of March 2025, the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies considered the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies first and second quarter expenditure and performance reports for 2024-2025. I rise to present this report to the House for adoption. The committee noted the progress that was made by the department in managing the audit action plan and welcomed the establishment of an integrated audit committee and governance workshops to oversee the implementation of the audit plan. However, we remained concerned about underperformance, the high vacancy rates, and irregular expenditure, which has characterized the reports that we saw. We strongly urge the Minister and the department to ensure that all funded posts are filled with delay. The committee further highlighted the duplication of resources within the portfolio, which resulted in inefficiency and unnecessary costs. There's a call from the committee for stronger coordination between the department and its entities in this regard. Honourable members, it's become a broken record that once again we note that the outdated ICT legislation continues to constrain innovation and inclusive digital growth. Policy and legislative reforms are to be prioritized to enable a future-ready and competitive sector. We're also deeply concerned about the financial stability of a number of entities, including the South African Post Office and Broadband Infraco. The Minister is called upon to expedite a clear sustainability plan for SAPO, including the consideration of private-public partnerships, and to ensure that South Africa Connect, a flagship initiative for digital inclusion, is implemented effectively. The merger of Centec and Broadband Infraco must also be finalized without delay. The regulator, the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, faces significant challenges in attracting skilled professionals and remains dependent on outdated systems. Adequate funding is required to strengthen its capacity and modernize its operations. Honourable members, the committee therefore recommends, as part of its consideration in the report, that the department must fill all board vacancies across entities. We're sitting with entities that are currently sitting, about 50% of the entities have got such vacancies. Ensure the enforcement of consequence management on all AG findings. Finalize and present the audio and audiovisual white paper, submit a clear plan for the implementation of the Digital Economy Master Plan, ensure optimal spending on flagship projects such as SA Connect, and expedite the Electronic Communications Amendment Bill, and finally implement SAPO's sustainability plan without delay. In conclusion, the committee stresses that improved coordination, strong accountability, and decisive reforms are essential to delivering a digitally inclusive future for South Africa. I so table the report, House Chair.
Thank you. The first speaker to declare on this report is the Honourable Bodlani.
House Chairperson, Bagolo Dumelang. The Department of Communications and Digital Technologies is a key service delivery department with the ability to turbocharge South Africa's economy and to change the quality of life of all South Africans. We acknowledge that the frequent changes of the leadership at the department has had a detrimental effect on its ability to meet its mandate. However, the fact remains that key milestones have been missed, including the analog switch-off, which has repeatedly been missed by more than a decade, starting from the initial migration deadline of the International Telecommunications Union mandated June 2015. We note the halting of the process because of a court action. We do, however, believe that a resolution will be reached so that the country can end the costly process of dual illumination, which is crippling the state entities that are relying on the switch off. The DA believes that the DCDT needs to be well capacitated by fast-tracking the finalization of the revised organizational structure to deliver on its mandate. The status quo of having the department functioning without an updated organizational structure aligned to its mandate and strategy cannot remain. The same can be said for the high vacancy rates, which must be addressed urgently. House Chairperson, the Electronic Communications Act 36 of 2005, which is an anchor legislation of the department, has become outdated, with the last amendment made in 2014. Since then, technology has advanced at a rapid pace. This dated legislation hinders the progress of all state entities that rely on the legislation to be self-sustainable and future-proof. Urgent policy overhaul is required, starting with the ECA, which covers a wide range of issues such as licensing, access, infrastructure, universal services, and other important aspects of the sector. In this regard, House Chairperson, we welcome Minister Malazi's announcement of a legislative and policy colloquium, which will bring government, business, civil society, and academia together to modernize the department's legislation. Importantly, it is important for us to ensure that this does not become a talk shop, but that new and amended legislation by the DCDT must be bold and introduce transformative reforms to the sector. The department must scrap job-killing policies such as the BEE, which have not enabled investors into the sector. This is the only way we can bridge the immense digital divide. On the SABC, we welcome the appointment of a service provider to develop the SABC funding model, as announced by Minister Malazi a short while ago. This is a great intervention given the recent misplaced and reckless claims that the SABC is on a brink of collapse, causing panic amongst SABC staffs and potential investors. The DA also welcomes announcement by the South African Post Office business rescue practitioners that they have started planning their exit from the business rescue. We remain concerned that there are no defined timeframes to inform the exit, and we await a solid business strategy that will ensure that SAPO will be sustainable in a future. More than SAPO being financially viable, it needs strong and capable leadership to ensure it does not move backwards. House Chairperson, on the Post Bank, following the termination of the master service agreement with the South African Social Service Security Agency, the Post Bank must finally comply with the South African Reserve Bank variation notice, which the President also stated in this week when addressing Parliament. Without a banking license, the bank cannot enter the arena and compete. The DA's vision for the department is that of an innovative, excellent, and forefront runner in new technologies on the developmental global stage. We believe that Minister Malatsi can achieve this, having achieved so much in just over a year in office compared to decades prior. The DA supports efforts for decisive and strengthening administration by the department to tackle this since the 7th administration. The DA also supports the committee's recommendation to ensure that there is consequence management across entities which do not take corrective measures for all the findings by the Auditor General. We look forward to receiving a report detailing progress on the consequence management of all cases. This report should be accompanied by timelines with firm finalization date. This is the only way we can build public trust and deter corruption and looting of state funds. The department must refocus public expenditure, eliminate waste, support pro-growth public finances. Ke a leboga, House Chairperson.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Reddy.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I'm filling in for Honorable Chabaleng and Shongwe, who are unwell. Let me make it clear right at the start that the MK party rejects this report, not because we want to reject it for the sake of rejecting it, but simply because you can't have the same leaders in place that's going to implement any of these plans of reform and expect a different outcome. We are seeing a department that is completely broken, and we confront yet another report that exposes the tragic truth. This department is failing South Africa. This department was meant to lead our nation's digital revolution, to bring every South African into the digital age. Instead, it treats our people as second-class citizens in their own country, delaying their future and denying them dignity. Let us be clear. This failure is not just administrative. It is political, it is moral, and it is unforgivable. The department has spent only 35% of its budget, leaving 1.34 billion rands unspent, while our people remain offline, unemployed, and trapped in poverty. This flagship SA Connect Phase 2 project, meant to connect our communities to broadband, is stalled. This means a graduate in Limpopo cannot even apply for a job online. A woman in KwaZulu-Natal cannot grow her business because digital tools are out of reach. A person with disabilities cannot access government services because the systems don't work. This is not just inefficiency, it is economic sabotage against the poor and the marginalized. The department's governance has collapsed. CETA wastes 23 million rands on unused software licenses, while our children cannot access e-learning. SAPO is under business rescue, yet taxpayers are still forced to subsidize its failure. And who suffers, Chairperson? The social grant recipients, women, the youth, and people with disabilities who queue for hours for broken systems that delay their payments. Even worse, consequence management is a joke. Only 30% of audit findings are resolved. Billions are lost to fruitless and wasteful expenditure with no punishment, no consequence management. This is money that could have built digital hubs, rolled out broadband to every township, and trained thousands of unemployed youth. Instead, it disappears while the digital divide widens and unemployment deepens. Honorable members, these failures are not just statistics. They are broken lives. They are broken promises. They are proof that this department does not put the masses first. South Africa does not need more workshops, more resolutions, more excuses, and empty promises. The 2026 local government elections is just around the corner, and there will be a referendum on this failure. As the Mkhonto we Sizwe Party, we stand with the unemployed, the excluded, the women, the youth, and the people with disabilities. We reject this report in its entirety. We are the party of economic freedom, of digital liberation, and of true accountability. We are the party that says, Kwaza Mkhonto Kwaza, freedom in our lifetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Tambo.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'd request to keep my camera off. I'm in an area of poor network.
You're welcome.
House Chairperson, quarter after quarter, we spend a significant amount of time and effort discussing the internal performance of institutions in this department that are not fulfilling a meaningful mandate to broader society. This is done consistently, as if there's anything worth writing home about internally in terms of performance, yet the picture is bleak. The department is characterized by unsatisfactory audit outcomes, deep-seated governance challenges, which include perennial vacancies and a lack of any visible guidance to the entities the department presides over. Let us take, for instance, the SABC, which we are told may lose its broadcast connection due to its debt to Centec. For how many years must we lament the lack of strategic direction which has led to the collapse of the very integrity of the public broadcaster? The South African Post Office we are told, is out of ICU and in the proverbial mortuary. Our nation remains in the dark ages due to slow pace of enforcing connectivity by SA Connect, and the MDDA has become a ceremonial institution as the community radio and broadcast space collapses. The GNU hallmark has been the surrender of critical departments to the hands of neoliberalism, and as neoliberals do, they have diminished state capacity further and now have begun to argue how senseless it is to even have a public broadcaster, to even have a post office, because they do not believe that the state should be in control of anything meaningful or strategic. As the EFF, we say to South Africans, do not be surprised if by December 2025 you are unable to watch Scheme Sam, because there's no appetite to rescue the SABC as things stand. As it goes for the EFF's principal challenge with a decrease in data costs and the end of expiring mandates for prepaid data and airtime, we remain committed because we do not belong to the pockets of mobile network services such as the ICASA, which is unable to give us concrete reports now. The EFF rejects this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Langa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. May I request to keep my camera off for better connectivity purposes?
You are welcome.
Honorable Chair, the IFP welcomes the clean audit outcome achieved by the department. This reflects improved compliance and oversight practices. However, we remain deeply concerned by the recurring underperformance, high vacancy rates, and systematic governance deficiencies that continue to characterize many of the department's entities, including SEPO, Postbank, CETA, and the SABC. Now, these weaknesses left unresolved threaten service delivery in critical areas such as universal broadband rollout, digital migration, and inclusive access to communication services. As the IFP, we want to reiterate that connecting schools, clinics, and rural communities is not an aspirational target. It is an urgent socio-economic imperative. Delays and underspending deny millions of South Africans equitable access to the opportunities of the digital economy. On governance, we take particular note of the findings that irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure persist across several entities. This undermines public confidence and diverts scarce resources away from the service delivery. We call for urgent consequence management against officials implicated in wrongdoing and for stronger early warning systems to prevent further lapses. We will continue to hold the department accountable for accelerating digital transformation, safeguarding strategic state entities, and ensuring that South Africa's communications sector serves the needs for all our people, especially the poor and marginalized. In the light of the points that we have raised, the IFP accepts the report. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Member Speaker, can I please be allowed to keep my video off connectivity, please?
You're welcome.
As a proud partner in the GNU, the Patriotic Alliance rise to make this declaration on the performance and expenditure report on the Department of Communication, Digital Technology for the first and second quarters of the 2024-2025 financial year as tabled in the ATC on 14 May 2025. We acknowledge the department's effort to expand digital infrastructure and promote inclusion. However, we must be honest with ourselves and with the people we serve. Transformation must be felt, not just reported. Our communities, especially those in township, rural areas, and informal settlements, continue to be sidelined in the digital economy. And among those most affected are marginalized colored communities who remain excluded from meaningful participation in both urban and peri-urban development strategies. Their inclusion must be deliberated, not incidental. Honorable members, digital development must be empowered, not excluded. The Patriotic Alliance called for a more aggressive rollout of ICT programs that directly benefits the poor. We need to see tangible impact in education, entrepreneurship, and access to service. Pilot projects and policy frameworks are not enough. We also call for strategic investment in SABC2. This channel remains one of the most accessible platforms for millions of South Africans. It must be strengthened to deliver educational content, civic engagement, and cultural representation, especially in languages and formats that reflects the diversity of our nation. Postbank must be more than a promise. It must be a tool of economic liberation. Its cooperation and operational strengthening must be fast-tracked. We need a state-owned financial institution that serves the unbanked and underbanked, particularly in rural and working-class communities. We welcome the progress made in filling board vacancies across key entities under the department, including Postbank, Sentech, and the South African Post Office. Strong government.
You, Honorable Member. Your time has now expired.
We support.
Thank you. Is there a speaker on behalf of the Freedom Front Plus?
No declaration, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I recognize the Honorable Dr. Letlape. Is Honorable Letlape on the platform? If not, is there some other representation from Action SA? We will check later on again. Let me then inquire the ICDP, the UDM, Rise Mzansi, BOSA, the ATM, Aljamar, the NCC, the PIC, the UAT, good. Honorable Letlape. Okay, then I recognize to close the debate the Honorable Marara. Honorable members,
Thanks, House Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans. Allow me to begin by thanking this DCTT and SITA for successful hosting GovTech 2025 from 8th to 10th September, which focus on building a smart and inclusive government. This significant event demonstrated the capabilities we have developed as a state through SITA and showcased the agency's ability to build relationship with private sector players while promoting transformation and digital inclusion. It is within this context of building a capable, ethical, and developmental state that the ANC stands before this House to affirm its commitment to building a connected, inclusive, and digital empowered nation. It is within these guidelines that we engage with the report on the 24th, 25th, Q1, Q2 performance and expenditure of the department. As ANC, we note the context of the report while simultaneously recognizing its importance in holding the executive to account and guiding our collective efforts as a country towards the attainment of the digital transformation envisioned in the NDP. The report provides insights of operational and financial health, detailing both commendable progress and gray areas for the attention. The ANC acknowledges the overall performance in quarter one, where it achieved 92% of its planned target. However, we note with concern the regression in quarter two, where it achieved 69% less, dropping with 8 targets. This dip in performance underscores the need for strengthened management and more robust monitoring and evaluation mechanism to ensure consistent delivery to our people. The areas of underachievement, particularly the delays in finalizing critical legislation such as the audio and audiovisual content services and online content safety bill, which has recently been revised, and the adequate development of monitoring reports for key strategies like the Digital Economy Master Plan and the SETA repurposing recommendation were of particular concern. These represented delays in implementing policies that are fundamental to regulate the digital space and stimulating economic growth in line with the national priorities. This report revealed a significant underspending of 1.341 billion by the end of quarter two. We note that the primary driver of this underspending is the delay in the SA Connect Phase 2 project. Honorable Chairperson, while such procedural adjustments are sometimes necessary to ensure fiscal prudence and compliance, we emphasize that the SA Connect project is a cornerstone of our national strategy to bridge the deep digital divide. Any delay in rollout directly impacts millions of our citizens, denying them access to essential government services. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, the ANC supports this report with all its weaknesses that we have identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mugaga. Honorable members, that concludes declarations on the last order and the business of this mini plenary. This mini plenary